Jordan Belfort is a global celebrity, a podcast host, and a high-ticket sales coach who commands massive audiences. But the fame he enjoys today stands in direct contrast to the $110 million in court-ordered restitution he still owes to the people he scammed. While Hollywood spent hundreds of millions glamorizing his crimes with A-list actors, the working-class people he actually scammed, the teachers, the veterans, the desperate parents, are still waiting for their money. How does a convicted fraudster manipulate society into cheering for the exact same behavior that put him in a federal prison? To understand how he pulled this off, we have to look past the white-collar criminal and examine his origins as a master salesman who learned to hack human psychology. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood in 1960s Queens, Belfort was obsessed with getting rich. By 16, he was already making $20,000 a summer selling Italian ices on the beach. After college, he tried to scale up, launching a door-to-door meat and seafood delivery business. He hustled relentlessly, moving $100,000 a month in product. But with zero logistical planning, the whole thing collapsed. Trucks broke down, invoices piled up, and product spoiled in the back seats of hot cars. Standing amidst the wreckage of a bankrupt business, Belfort saw that the product, whether it was Italian ices or frozen steaks, was incidental. He could sell anything as long as he had a phone and a voice on the other end. He took that raw talent to Wall Street, landing a job at an established brokerage right at the height of 1980s financial excess. He absorbed exactly how brokers talked and sold, right up until the market crashed on Black Monday and he was abruptly fired. By stripping away physical products entirely, he could focus strictly on selling the illusion of wealth, weaponizing his powers of persuasion. He found his perfect vehicle in the unregulated, chaotic world of penny stocks. These were companies that traded for fractions of a cent, ignored by serious brokers, but carrying a massive 50% commission for whoever could convince someone to buy them. Belfort didn't pitch to wealthy financiers. He targeted the people Wall Street usually ignored, working-class retirees and everyday folks desperate for a financial lifeline. He sold them the dream of getting in on the ground floor. To scale this operation, he teamed up with a fast-talking hustler named Danny Porish and founded Stratton Oakmont. They didn't hire financial analysts. They hired neighborhood misfits, college dropouts, and bartenders who were hungry enough to follow orders. He trained them using a system he invented called straight-line persuasion. It was a high-pressure psychological tactic designed to bulldoze any hesitation, drowning out a prospect's doubts and moving them in a single, unbroken line from hello to handing over their life savings. Stratton Oakmont functioned entirely outside the bounds of traditional finance. It was a specialized psychological weapon pointed directly at the wallets of the middle class. This chart illustrates exactly how they extracted millions from those investors using a scheme known as a pump and dump. First, Stratton Oakmont quietly bought up massive blocks of extremely cheap shares in newly public shell companies. Then came the pump. Belfort turned his sales floor into a hype machine, cold calling thousands of retail investors with manufactured excitement and false urgency, causing the stock's value to artificially skyrocket based entirely on aggressive sales tactics. And finally, the dump. Once the price peaked, Belfort and his insiders immediately sold off all their hidden holdings. The market flooded, the stock price plummeted vertically, and the original investors were left holding completely worthless portfolios. The cash generated by this cycle funded a surreal level of office debauchery, helicopters, yachts, and staggering amounts of narcotics. But while the brokers were throwing parties, FBI financial crimes agents were quietly subpoenaing wire records and tracking cold call scripts. The walls were closing in, but his arrogance blinded him. Despite explicit warnings that he was under federal investigation and instructed not to move funds, he brazenly wired $2 million to a Swiss bank account. That single $2 million wire gave the FBI the final piece of their puzzle. The decision to move money while under surveillance effectively ended his run, providing the smoking gun the government needed for a raid. Agents raided Stratton Oakmont at sunrise, ripping phones from desks and copying hard drives. Suddenly, Belfort was staring down the barrel of up to 30 years in federal prison for wire fraud, securities fraud, and money laundering. With his empire dismantled, Belfort made his most calculated pivot yet. He struck a deal. He put on a wire and spent months collecting evidence against the very employees he had personally recruited, trained, and demanded absolute loyalty from. Over 30 of his friends and disciples were handed federal indictments, with many serving significant prison sentences. Belfort, meanwhile, secured a heavily reduced 22-month sentence in a minimum security facility, where he spent his afternoons playing tennis. To save his own skin, he proved that within his worldview, Human loyalty was simply another asset waiting to be liquidated at the absolute top of the market. It was in that exact prison facility where he met comedian Tommy Chong. Listening to the wild stories of cash envelopes and destroyed yachts, Chong suggested he write a book. Belfort realized he had found his next highly profitable product. He packaged his crimes into an unapologetic memoir and sold the film rights. Hollywood took a brutal financial scheme that destroyed thousands of families and repackaged it into a globally celebrated blockbuster. Today, he tours the world as a highly paid business guru, while the people who remortgaged their homes based on his lies are still desperately trying to collect the vast majority of their court-ordered restitution. Belfort turned his criminal history into a marketable brand, successfully selling a glamorous myth to a public that often rewards the hustle. In the end, we gave him the one thing the court couldn't: his status back.